This is the Eat Well, Think Well, Live Well podcast. I'm Lisa Salisbury, and this is episode 133, Food Journal versus Strict Calorie Tracking. Welcome to Eat Well, Think Well, Live Well, the podcast for busy women who want to lose weight without constantly counting, tracking, or stressing over every bite. I'm Lisa Salisbury, a certified health, weight loss, and life coach, and most importantly, a recovered chronic dieter. Here, you'll learn to listen to your body and uncover the reasons you're reaching for food when you're not truly hungry, freeing you to focus on a healthier, more fulfilling approach to eating. Hello again to another great episode I have planned for you today. It is super stormy and windy out my office window today, so I hope that doesn't conflict with my sound and that we can get this recorded without too much distraction out there. I've been thinking about the differences between calorie tracking in a dieting type app and simple food journaling. The vast majority of my clients have done calorie tracking in some form in the past. Most of them are, like me, chronic dieters, and we can look at a plate of food and estimate the calories, or so we think. But I predominantly have my clients use a simple food journal. And as you know, we also go into food planning and planning ahead, creating a 24-hour practical plan. That's going to be not something I'm going to talk about today. I'm just going to let you know right now we're talking about strict food journaling, just writing down what you ate. Doing a 24-hour plan is something I do with a lot of clients, and you'll hear that on other episodes. But today I'm talking just about journaling as it comes. Okay, so today I want to really just discuss the pros and cons of both of these methods so you can accurately decide what's best for you. The truth is, regardless of age, we must be in a calorie deficit to lose weight. That is just the truth of energy balance. Despite all of the influencers on Instagram telling you that it's your hormones or that you're actually undereating or all of these other wacky reasons, there is the law of thermodynamics. You must be in a calorie deficit to lose weight. You must take in less energy than your body is going to use in that day. In this way, we force the body to use energy that we have on board. I sometimes call this dining in. This is when your body uses the fat stores that are on the body to get a little bit of energy that you need. This is how you lose weight. As a side note to this, ideally, we are getting that energy from the fat stores and not the muscle. We can sort of force our bodies to do this in a couple of ways. Force our bodies to use the fat over the muscle, okay? First, we've got to be eating adequate protein, somewhere in the 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilogram of body weight. If you don't want to do that calculation, a good average is to multiply your weight in pounds by 0.7. So for round numbers, a 150-pound individual would be aiming for 108 grams of protein per day, and a 200-pound individual would be upwards of 140 grams. So I know y'all feel like you're eating protein like it's your job. I know. And I'm not going to make protein the topic of this or yet another podcast, but it is a factor in weight loss so that you encourage your body to go for those fat stores. The second way we can help our body go for the fat stores is to make weight loss slow. I know. Ugh. But the current recommendation for slow weight loss is around 0.5 to 0.7% decrease per week of total body weight. Okay, so again, let's go for that 150-pound individual. That would be just 3/4 to 1 pound per week. And for a 200-pound individual, that would be 1 to 1.4 pounds per week. So you can aim to lose a little bit more actual weight if you have more to lose. But I know we all want it to go really fast. But if you told someone, I lost 50 pounds this year, that would actually be amazing, right? To lose 50 pounds in a year, and that would be a pound a week. That's pretty average here. So let it take time, as this is the most sustainable, most doable, and most long-lasting approach. Let it take the time. And again, you'll be more likely as well to target those fat stores. Okay, so that's all weight loss and speed, but back to the calorie deficit. That is what is required whether you count calories or not. So I want to get into this idea of food journaling versus tracking in an app or logging strict type calorie counting and the pros and cons of each of those. So let's start with food journaling. Number one pro, it helps you lose weight, period. In a 2008 study of 1,700 individuals who were, they were older than 25 or older, and they were considered overweight or obese. There is a linear relationship between the number of food records they kept per week and the weight that was lost. Meaning the more records they kept, the more food records they kept, the more weight they lost. And in fact, those who kept daily food records lost twice as much weight as those who kept no records. So just keeping a food journal alone is actually a weight loss intervention. It's so fascinating to me. So that is obviously the first major pro for food journaling. Now, technically, this could apply as well to strict calorie counting in an app, food logging in any kind of app. That would also be food records, but it doesn't have to be. And I think that's what's really important from this study, that it doesn't have to be that. It can just be paper and pencil. All right, number two, food journaling with paper and pencil is easy. It's easy to look back on, and especially if you do your whole week, say like on one page or one chart, like my clients do. They have a sheet in their workbook that gives the whole week at a time, and so it's easy to see patterns in the week. Number three, food journaling can be a low barrier to entry to start recording what you eat. This is so critical to make things easy on yourself. You don't need to learn a new app. You don't need to pay for a new app. You don't need to find each individual item that you ate on that app and log it separately. You can just write down green salad with avocados and a couple tablespoons of ranch dressing. That will give you enough information for a food journal. Number four, food journaling on paper allows you to track other important information, such as the time of day you are eating or digestive symptoms you might be experiencing. If you are, again, looking for patterns, which I really encourage you to do so, jotting down the time that you ate is really helpful. Also, if you're working on, say, bloating or heartburn, you can give yourself a rating after the meal on a scale of 1 to 10 of how that symptom is going. Then you can easily look back on the week and see when you were, say, 5 or above, and then note any correlations to what you ate on those days. I find this much easier to do when I can see a week at a time with paper and pencil or even a spreadsheet type food journal and see all of that information at one time. All right, number five, you can make it as complex or as simple as you want. If you are trying to increase your protein or your fiber, you can just measure those ingredients. So maybe you are weighing out just your protein portions and noting that down in your food journal to make sure you are hitting that goal of 100 grams of protein per day. Or you can measure everything. You can measure nothing, which is what I do. When I was first coming off my restricted and fad diets, I practiced with just writing down my food without any measurements and used the hunger scale to determine how much to eat. I would write that down with my food journal as well, my before and after hunger scale numbers. In this way, I didn't need to write down any measurements of food. I kept it really simple. It was pretty easy for me to just tell looking at the journal if I had overeaten. If my list of foods for the day was a mile long, it's unlikely that all of that food fit in my hunger scale and I was likely overnourished. But all this is to say, you can be complex and weigh certain things and track that, or you can be super simple and just write down the food and possibly your hunger scale numbers. So it's super, super flexible. Okay, all of that sounds pretty good, right? Let's just all do this. Why wouldn't we? There are tons of pros. What are the cons? Let's look at those. Honestly, I couldn't really come up with a lot here, except for that it does take time, but I don't really consider that a con since you are worth it. If you have a weight loss goal, you are worth taking a few minutes after each meal to write down your food to help your efforts. And honestly, this is a con for food journaling in an app as well, food logging, if you're trying to do a lot of calorie counting. So probably it's not really a con because I think it's faster than tracking in an app. So I think maybe I should just scratch that. But really the only con to food journaling is the lack of accurate calorie counting. If you are trying to figure out why you are not losing weight After consistently, and I mean like every single day, for 2 or 3 weeks, you are writing down all the food you are eating. If you have been doing that and you are not losing any weight, then you might want to think about checking in with your calories. I really love using the hunger scale to determine food amounts, but I have had clients who feel like they just can't feel their hunger and satiety cues. In addition, I have coached women who have a hard time estimating protein content in their meals, or they really have never weighed and measured and counted in the past, so they are unfamiliar with protein and calorie content. For these women, food logging in an app could be a useful tool in the short term. More on that later. So let's move over to the pros and cons of food logging with an app. Number one, you can be relatively sure you are in a calorie deficit. I say relatively because there is always user error, and depending on the app you are using, you may be using inputs from other users that are actually inaccurate. Watch out for this on, I just have to, I hate to like name apps here because I don't want to like diss on creators or companies or whatever. And also I'm not sponsored by any of these, but this is a major problem with MyFitnessPal. So you really have to watch because everybody can enter and then it's available and they're not necessarily accurate. So you really do need to watch out for that. But for the most part, logging in a food app is the most accurate way we currently have to see if you are in a calorie deficit. Also, as a side note, remember, since we want a slow rate of loss, we don't need to be in a drastic deficit. 1,200 calories is for toddlers, so watch out for what an app might recommend. You as an adult woman need more than that. Simplest calculation for weight loss is body weight times 12. Most women can lose weight on that. But again, that's a side note. We're trying to do the pros here. So the pros is you can be relatively sure that you're in a calorie deficit. Number two, you can see your protein count without having to do that calculation separately. It will also find those few grams in plant-based items like grains or some vegetables that will add to your total count, which is nice because if you're using a quality app, it's going to calculate your macros as well. Number three, if you are using a high quality app, you can also track micronutrients that might be important to you. You know from a few episodes back with Dr. Sarah Ballantyne of Nutrivore how important micronutrients are. I like the Chronometer app for this. This, again, not sponsored or anything, but it does a good job, even in the free version of tracking micronutrients. I've also noticed that it breaks down saturated fat from total fat, which can be a helpful metric if you are needing to lower or manage your cholesterol. Okay, the major con I want to point out with some food logging in apps is the actual calorie count. This can lead to major issues for some people. Just seeing the calorie count can be somewhat triggering for women with a past history of disordered eating. You might have a lot of judgmental thoughts about the calories that, who knows, I don't know you, but just be aware of that. If you have a history of disordered eating in the past, not necessarily a full-blown eating disorder, but any kind of disordered eating, you want to be aware that calorie counts might not be helpful or useful for you. For some people, they get very anxious. I'm over here raising my hand. If you can't accurately track and get in the app, the accurate amounts, so their count is off, and then it can effectively, quote unquote, ruin the day. I can tell you many times that I couldn't figure out how to log a certain food that I didn't cook myself, or I forgot to weigh my portion or something, and then I couldn't get it exactly in the app. And this would make me very anxious and very frustrated. If you are feeling that with food logging in an app, it's not for you. It's not going to be helpful in the long run. Another con of this type of logging is it doesn't seem sustainable for most people. Like, how long do I have to do this? They wonder. Again, the same con I discussed with the food journal, this takes a lot of time. For some people, it can take much, much longer than food journaling. For others, if you have very standard meals and they're saved in your favorites, it can just be a few clicks. So that con, the time factor might be a factor for both of these tools, but like I said before, you're worth it. Lastly, on cons on these types of apps, I don't think any of the apps I've ever tried are easy to look back on the week at a time to notice trends or patterns in what I eat. Like I said, I do like Chronometer, and you can add a note, so you may be able to add like scores for digestive symptoms with each meal if you want. But then I just don't know how you see them all together. I haven't used this app extensively, I'll be honest, just a little bit here and there to test it out for clients that need a different way to track. But it just isn't as simple as seeing the whole week at a time, I don't think. Okay. So what's the answer? With all of these pros and cons for both styles, which way should you go? Honestly, it depends on your goals and your history. If you have a history of disordered eating, but you still want to lose weight for health or functional reasons, then food journaling without measuring and weighing is the way to go. This is going to be the least triggering way to go about weight loss. Just go back and listen to some of my hunger scale episodes and get really good at tuning into your body and keep really accurate food journals. So remember, food journaling alone is a weight loss intervention. So just make sure that, yes, every food that you eat, even the last chicken nugget from your child's plate, gets logged on that food journal. If you have a history of never dieting, never having tracked before, then it could be a useful tool to gather information to use a food logging app and to look at some calorie counts. It could be enlightening for you to weigh portions of protein and rice and potatoes. You'll get an idea of what a serving of cereal or yogurt looks like in your bowl. If you decide to track in an app, set a time frame. For example, I'm going to track for a month and then switch to food journaling and see how I do. A month would be enough time to really learn most of the foods that you eat and what proper portions look like on your plates and bowls. This is why I said earlier that logging in an app can be useful short term. I never encourage someone to take up food logging in an app and not have an end date. This might seem counterintuitive to other things I've said, like diets with end dates are the worst. Okay, but this is different because you aren't stopping your weight loss efforts after a month. You are just switching to depending on the knowledge you gained and using the hunger school. While tracking, I would encourage you to pay attention to how your body feels in that calorie deficit and about how often you get hungry, and then maintain those patterns. Use the time that you tracked as a learning tool. No matter which way you go, logging your food and keeping records is one of our easiest and freest forms of weight loss tools. So I really encourage you to at least dive into one of them. I'm so glad you tuned in today. If today's insights resonated with you and you're ready to make lasting changes in your health journey, I'd love to help. You can book a free consult session with me to see if my 12-week one-on-one coaching program is right for you. You can schedule it at the link in the show notes. Remember, it's not just about the food, it's about empowering yourself with choices that truly serve you. Have a great week, and as always, thanks for listening to the Eat Well, Think Well, Live Well podcast.